News Central now at this hour begins in Rivers State, southern Nigeria, where the leadership of the All Progressives Congress in Rivers State has urged the 27 members of the State House of Assembly loyal to Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Wike, to commence an impeachment process against the governor of the state, Fubara. The state's APC Caretaker Committee Chairman, Tony Okocha, made the call on Tuesday at a news briefing in Port Harcourt. He said the governor had continued to disrespect President Bola Ahmed Tinubu by refusing to implement all the 8-point peace agreements reached in Abuja on the political crisis in the state, to which he appended his signature. He added that the APC's charge to the Assembly is to immediately commence an impeachment process against the governor. And of course, staying in Rivers State, the governor of the state, Fubara, has declared that the Martin Amaole-led House of Assembly as floating and non-existent, and as such has no valid potency to take binding legislative decisions on the state following their defection. The governor disclosed this while addressing a delegation of traditional rulers and opinion leaders from Bayelsa State, led by Senator Sirike Dixon, the former governor of the state, who paid him a courtesy visit to at the government house, Port Harcourt. The governor maintained that he had acted like the big brother in the crisis, not interested in destroying the house so that meaningful development can continue to be engendered in the state while securing tenable political relationship.
I've subjected myself to every meeting of reconciliation for peace. And what happens? It is each time we come out from one meeting, we are faced with one thunder or lightning. Let me say it here. The young people, those group of men who claim that are assembly members, are not assembly members. They are not existing. I want it to be on record. I accepted that peace accord to give them a floating. That's the truth. There was nothing in that peace accord that's a constitutional issue. It's a political solution to a problem. But I think it's according to a time when I need to make a statement on this thing, so that they understand that they're not existing. Their existence is me allowing them to exist. If I de-recognize them, they are nowhere. You don't know what I'm going through. I'm working with my own enemies. Imagine where your commissioner, your attorney general will go to sabotage you. It's as bad as that. But they will get, they will get their reward. Not in this world, though, in this world. What brought us to this level is we don't have leaders in River State. Let's not pretend. What is happening in River State even happened in Bayelsa. But people could call and say, don't do this, don't do this. And they said, let's let it go. It was done here. But nobody listened because the leaders have sold their conscience. There is no complete River State without Bayelsa. We must work together to develop our states.
Away from that, the Speaker of the Edo State House of Assembly, Blessing Agbebaku, has suspended 3 lawmakers with immediate effect. Their suspension came over allegations of an impeachment plot to remove the Speaker and some other principal officers of the House. The 3 suspected lawmakers are Donald Okogbe, that's PDP Akoko Edo 11, Bright Yamo, PDP Orimoalo South, and also Adai Sibo Essen North East 1. Now, during the sitting at the Assembly complex, Agbebaku insisted that the 3 suspended members were being backed by some persons outside the Assembly to foment trouble and remove the leadership of the House. He also alleged that some persons brought native doctors into the House at midnight on May 1st, 2024 to make some demonic incantations and drop charms in the Assembly complex. The former Speaker of Abia House of Assembly, Chinedum Orji, has officially joined the All Progressives Congress Party. Orji was at the State Party Secretariat in Umuahia a while ago to pick his membership form after he tendered his resignation letter to the People's Democratic Party's chairman in the state. Orji, who contested the Ikwano Umuahia federal constituency seat and lost in the last election, along with the deputy governorship candidate for the People's Democratic Party in the 2023 election in Abia State, Jasper Uche, had earlier been reported to have resigned their membership of the party. Earlier, a PDP chieftain and former commissioner of information in the state, that's John Okiyi Kalu, spoke to us on this development.
The Nigerian brand of democracy at work. In Nigeria, I don't think it is a very important news that someone is leaving from one political party to another. It is the way our democracy functions at the moment. So the decision to move one way or another is a personal decision. And as people are leaving the PDP, others are coming back. Since yesterday that those who left announced their exit, many more have rejoined the party across the state. Many more have rejoined the party across the state. So I think it's democracy at work, and there's nothing to worry about.
Moving away from that, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission has arrested 6 senior officers of the Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps over alleged 66 billion naira fraud. The senior officers are currently being grilled by the Economic and Financial Crimes interrogators at the Commission's headquarters in Jabi, Abuja. Though details of the probe are still sketchy, the NSCDC's officers were handed over to the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission on Monday on the order of the NSCDC's Commandant General Ahmed Audi. This comes after the EFCC chairman, Ola Olukoyede, had earlier written a letter to the official, that's the CG, demanding the officers' release for interrogation. The Central Bank of Nigeria has instructed banks in the country to implement a cybersecurity levy on transactions, which, according to a circular issued by the Central Bank of Nigeria on Monday, the levy will be implemented starting 2 weeks from now. The directive applies to commercial, merchant, non-interest, and payment service banks, as well as other financial institutions, mobile money operators, and the payment service providers. Exempted from the levy includes loan disbursement and repayments, salary payments, intra-account transfers within the same bank or between different banks for the same customer, intra-bank transfers between customers of the same bank. Also exempted from the levy were interbank transfers within a bank, cash clearing and check clearing and settlement, letter of credit, bank recapitalization, related funding, only bulk transfer movement from collection accounts, savings and deposits, including transactions involving long-term investments, amongst others. Now, for more on this, I'm joined on the news by Kenneth Ikenwa, a business and social policy analyst. Kenneth, thank you for joining me on the news.
Good evening, Dapo. It's nice seeing you again, and it's nice being on New Central again.
Yes, the feeling is mutual. Now, let's talk about how the implementation of the cybersecurity levy impact the operational cost and profitability of banks and also the financial institutions in Nigeria involved.
All right, I woke up this morning to this news. I cannot say it was a news worth celebrating. It is deepening the tax net for the government, but it is also increasing the sundry expenditure for the citizen. And if you know me very well, I'll always be on the part of the people, on the part of the citizens, whilst we do everything possible to encourage the government to at least deliver good dividends of democracy. Now, back to your question with respect to this new cybersecurity levy, I think it's more appropriate to call it a cybersecurity tax that individuals in Nigeria would have to pay, and I think some corporate organizations would have to pay. It does not in any way impact the profitability of banks, because the levies are not going to be going into banks. But what may just happen is that consumers of these banking products may become smarter to start looking for ways where they can avoid paying these levies by restricting themselves to the 16 different pivots that lead to the exemption of these taxes. So it will mean that the little or the small market woman that has to do business with somebody in my 12 would now have to look for somebody in my 12 that has and shares the same bank with her, so or him, so that he or she can actually avoid these taxes. So it is not a problem of the banks per se. It is a cost of transaction that is being passed across to final consumers. And it really begs the question whether that is what we need at this point in time. A couple of matters actually do arise. Most key of these are whether these transactions and these levies or this tax, I prefer to call them, are backed by law, no doubt. It is backed by the Cyber Crime Prevention and Prohibition Act as amended 2024. I'm still doing my research to find out when that amendment was done and why it was done. But as the conversation unfolds, I guess there's more that we would have to unravel with respect to this new trend in our system.
I mean, there are quite a number of knotty, areas about this new or recent development. And one of it is, what value exactly does this portend for the customer? So does it mean that the customer can sue an institution should his money, get missing in transit and the bank tells you they can't trace it? So, the rationale behind this cyber, tax levy, or as you've called it, is also brought to the fore. I'd like you to expand more on that.
Well, for me, we know what is happening in the country now. The explanations with this recent development, or the explanations that help us to unfold the result, the trade behind this development, are not far-fetched. The country is in need of serious revenue generation. And one of the ways by which we can actually generate revenue is by deepening the tax net. But when you now start imposing cybersecurity levies or taxes on ordinary Nigerians, the question remains, what benefits, like you did actually say, should come back to Nigerians? I know from the acts that I perused through this morning that these levies are supposed to be collected and domiciled in a central bank account for onward onboarding and transfer to the office of the National Security Advisor in what is called the cybersecurity or cybersecurity fund. Now, what will this fund be used for? I would have expected, like you rightly said, that this fund should be used or should be going into some form of insurance net where people that are victims of genuine victims of cybersecurity attacks, like we saw within the week, one of the Nollywood female legends had her account emptied by another bank, from one bank, by another customer, to another bank. So what happens to people like this that are genuine victims of cybersecurity attacks? I do not know. As the days unfold and as we continue to study the trend, we will see where these funds will actually get to and what they will be used for.
Now, let's also consider measures taken by banks expected to undertake and ensure compliance with the cybersecurity levy directive while minimizing disruptions to customer transactions and services. How do you think that this can come about?
Could you take that question again? I didn't get that question.
Okay, now the question what I was just trying to clarify is how can banks, sort of implement this in a way that at the end of the day it's efficient and doesn't affect day-to-day transaction?
No, I mean the architecture, the technology and the innovation and the architecture that backs up how these new levies and how these new instructions will be implemented already exist. It's just for the banks to onboard whatever is collected at any point in time, to the central bank domiciled account, and the central bank onboards it to the Office of National Security Advisor. Now, the amount that will be coming from this is quite humongous, because as at 2022, the volume of electronic transfers that were registered in Nigeria was in the excess of 325 trillion naira. Now, in 2023, it went up to 600 trillion naira. So divide that or multiply that by 0.005, and you can imagine what will be coming back to the government coffers. So my real challenge, away from what the architecture actually would portend for the future in terms of ensuring security, but supposedly cybersecurity for Nigerians, is the transparency and the accountability that surrounds the governance mechanisms around which and about which these funds will actually be used. I will be a little bit more comfortable if the Office of the National Security Advisor will give us full disclosure, expose us to open book management of how these funds are utilized and how these funds are managed. We can't continue to tax Nigerians. The kind of tax that ordinary Nigerians will be paying from this new instruction now is called the Piguvian tax. What is the Piguvian tax? It is the payment of tax for something that you don't really have any business with. So if there are cybersecurity threats, if there are cybersecurity issues, why should I, a customer, be taxed to start paying or to start funding an architecture that will ensure that that is reduced or mitigated to the barest minimum? I think it is fair that that was included in Cybersecurity Act as amended in 2024. And I think Nigerians are already paying too much, and Nigerians already have their purchasing power reduced already. So start asking them to pay some extra 500 or 50 naira on every 10,000 naira transaction, and other taxes that have been paid, other levies. Some pay for text messages, some pay for transfers. I don't think it is fair to Nigerians at this point in time.
All right, Kenneth, before I let you go, just let me echo the concerns or the, will I call it, reaction right now of some people or certain individuals or citizens as regards this particular directive. They've dubbed it institutional extortion. Do you do you think this particular directive from the government, reflects such?
So let's cut a slack for Mr. Wale Edo and Dr. Yemi Cardoso and their principal, the President of the Federal Republic. So dub it institutional extortion, I think, is quite too heavy. But I would say it is institutional exploitation for services that otherwise should come free of charge. Now, the main question we should be asking is there any country in the world where this is happening? From my research up till 5 p.m. this evening, there is no country in Africa or in the world that I have found actually charges any form of cyber security levy or tax. This is Piguvian taxation. This is not fair. And I hope that it will come down to maybe 0.1, and then maybe I will send a bottle of wine to Mr. Edu and to Dr. Cardoso for at least trying to make sure that we are cyber safe.
All right, thank you so much, Kenneth Ikenwa, for your time on the news.
Nice being with you again.
All right. The Chief Executive Officer of Binance, Richard Teng, has condemned the Nigerian government's detention of employee Tigran Gambaryan, calling it unjust and setting a dangerous precedent for global businesses. According to Teng, despite Binance's efforts to cooperate with Nigerian authorities, Gambaryan remains detained for purported reasons. Now, Teng criticized the government's tactics of inviting employees for policy discussion only to detain them, suggesting it sends a chilling message to companies worldwide. Gambaryan and colleague Nadeem and Jawala were arrested on February 26th in connection with a criminal probe into Binance's Nigerian activities. Anjawala escaped custody, but Gambaryan remains detained at Kuje Correctional Center awaiting bail determination. Now, the Anti-Corruption Civil Society Organization have again advised the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission to toe the path of the rule of law and not continue to give credence to the impression that its anti-corruption mandate is being politicized by some interest whose intentions are neither patriotic nor altruistic. According to them, what is happening currently in the ongoing controversy surrounding Commission's handling of its allegation against the immediate past governor of Kogi State, Yahaya Bello, connotes nothing but that. He also noted that with the way the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission had handled the matter, especially the threats from the lawyers and the Commission's boss, it was justifiable to say that Yahaya Bello's life might not be safe in the custody of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, as being expressed by supporters. And we believe this is a legitimate fear. End of quote.
To personality, to creed, to gender, and race or status. It doesn't matter who you are. The personality of justice. Justice is blind to who you are. It is what you do and what you are capable of doing that determines where the scale tilts. For anyone to claim to fight for justice or against injustice, he or she must first divest him or herself of any primordial sentiments that such a person may harbor and wouldn't care whether it is a friend or an enemy he is defending against injustice.
We know you have everything that has been put into custody. It is good that the APC have already filed the suit against the court, the date has been given for hearing. We believe so much that the court is going to be the eventual arbiter in this matter. Not even EFCC or the suspect, as the case may be, will determine who is right or not in this matter. We want to say that the court knows what to do. The court will ensure that, of course, that the suspect, as the case is, and the commission present themselves before the court wherever they are required.
The federal government of Nigeria has clarified that there were no discussions with foreign countries regarding the establishment of foreign military bases in the country. The Minister of Information, Mohammed Idris, made this known in a statement following concerns raised by northern leaders about the potential risk associated with such a move. In a letter dated May 3, 2023, addressed to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and the National Assembly leaders, the Northern elders urged government to resist pressure from the U.S. and France. The letter highlighted concerns about lobbying efforts for defense agreements to station troops previously in Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. The Northern leaders expressed worry that such agreements could jeopardize Nigeria's defense and security. To discuss this, we are joined by Dr. Abimbola Oyarinu. He is a lecturer, Department of History and Diplomatic Studies, Olabisi Onabanjo University, Agoiwoye, Ogun State. Thank you for your time. Now,
thank you for having me.
Great. Now, let's talk about the potential implications for Nigeria's sovereignty and national security if foreign military bases were to be established within the country.
This has been a subject that most scholars and leaders have often deliberated on. Looking at the precedents, a layman will tell you in clear terms, no, military bases should not be situated here. Looking at countries where have housed military bases of great powers and what the result has been eventually. But from an international relations perspective, I would like to delve a little away from the popular opinion and say that history does not remember those who sit on the fence during critical times. History remember actors. And since 1960, our foreign policy position has been that of non-aligned. We have actually stayed away from great power politics in the international forum. And to what extent, to what benefit has that been for the country? David Ondeyin recently tweeted, responding to someone who invited great powers to make Nigeria a theater of international politics. David Ondeyin didn't have the best of words for the man he was addressing. But like I would always tell a layman, international relations is a professional job, and you allow professionals do their job. And as a professional, I would say that it is better to play this politics rather than stay on the fence. If you look at the history of countries that have developed recently, and going by Rostow's economic growth theory, in his second stage of development, which is the precondition for takeoff, he advocated that every country that wants to develop must have a mentor. And tell me any developed country today who does not have a mentor. So who is mentoring Nigeria? And if we continue to stay on the fence, how are we going to create or attract our great powers to, take Nigeria's case seriously. You understand that we've been having challenges with terrorism, and most countries have refused to sell arms and ammunition to the country simply because we're isolated.
Well, talking about isolation,
policy,
Dr. Yarino, I'm sorry to just come in here. I mean, you said quite a number of things, but let's also look at Nigeria's foreign outlook when it comes to international affairs. Nigeria is part of the category of countries that refer to themselves as being neutral, non-aligned. And we know that once you have this military agreements, it makes you look a bit more aligned. So, for instance, you have a military base, from China, or military agreements in China, and then they set up a base or a lily pad, as it's called in some palaces. They would, the outlook gives that, okay, maybe Nigeria is pro-China. If it's the US, Nigeria might be pro-US. If it's Russia, it's perceived that maybe Nigeria is pro-Russia. So, looking at Nigeria's international standing, particularly when it comes to, global ideology, and this kind of issue on the table, it puts the country at some sort of a dilemma.
Well, my question is, when we have stayed neutral, when we have remained non-aligned, what benefit has it brought to the country? You must understand that the currency of international politics is power. And to what extent has Nigeria curated power in the international system? In actual fact, foreign policy has never been an attractive area for politicians to win votes. But I tell you, any serious country that wants to develop, like Niccolo Machiavelli advised the prince, he said he should secure domestic politics and pursue international politics. Any country that wants to grow must play at the international arena. So my argument now is, our non-aligned policy, what good has it brought us? So if something is not working, the ideal thing is to change it. Currently, the international system is experiencing a shakeup. How are we trying to position ourselves when the international system eventually settles? Power remains the currency of the international system, and we must curate power.
Now, following the perceived risk outlined by the Northern Elders, what alternative strategies could the Nigerian government explore to strengthen its national defense?
My argument will be, what the critical questions must be asked, and we must get the best deal for the country. There's nothing wrong with having a bilateral agreement that benefits the country, because a number of questions should be asked. First and foremost, what is Nigerian foreign policy on a subject like this? Secondly, what is the purpose of situating this base in the country? Thirdly, what are the terms of this bilateral agreement? Fourth, what does Nigeria stand to gain? What is Nigeria's interest in this deal, so to say? My position will be that, considering that the US and France are currently going through a challenge, it makes them vulnerable. It means that whatever we put on the table will most likely fly. It means that if we request that they support Nigeria in quelling the Boko Haram crisis, it means that they will be willing to look into it. So we must think in terms of interest, and we must think in terms of benefit. Look at how much the Boko Haram crisis and the bandits has cost Nigeria in terms of finances and in terms of economic activities. So my position would be that this kind of opportunity, it rarely comes. It rarely comes. We must take advantage of that opportunity. The fears are not baseless. Yes, the fears are real. The challenges are real.
All right.
But it is what we do with the agreement that matters, not staying away from the agreement. I do not support.
All right, Dr. Abimbola Oyarinu, thank you once again for being on the news. Of course, a lecturer at Department of History and Diplomatic Studies at the Olabisi Onabanjo University, Agoiwoye in Ogun State. Once again, thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Now, still staying on security matters. A report published by the SBM Intelligence says insurgent activities appears to be gradually intensifying, even as the Nigerian military continues to strive to tackle insecurity across the country. The report indicates that gang violence continues to endanger commercial enterprises. Also, the issue of overlapping responsibilities undermines coordination between security agencies. As News Central's Neomani tells us more.
The kidnap crisis in Nigeria's north central, the mounting death of servicemen in ambushes in the northeast, and killing of 85 civilians in a drone strike, which overshadowed the success of the military in the fight against bandits in the northwest, are a few of the many security challenges Nigeria still grapples with. According to an intelligence report compiled by SBM Intelligence, security forces across Nigeria have been battling a spate of violent incidents over the past week. From gang clashes in Edo State to banditry, kidnapping, increased e-swap activities, gun violence and forced brutality. Insurgents seem to be slowly regaining momentum.
Last year made it 10 years since the military was deployed to fight Boko Haram in the northeast. They've never left, they're still there, even though there are plans to rewind down the participation. But we find that instead of returning to the barracks, the multiplicity of the challenges the Nigerian state faces have now made their task even more difficult.
The proliferation of local arms manufacturing further compounds the already intricate security environment.
The past 1 year or two, we are now seeing things like general purpose machine guns that was used to take down an aircraft in Zamfara State in 2021. And we are now hearing things like mortars, we're now hearing things like IEDs, which was previously unheard of. So what it tells you is that the skill is enough to go around. The Nigerian military has not been successful enough in picking up the people who have this knowledge base. I can't also rule out the possibility that these weapons, that's the imported weapons, are coming in from the porous borders.
So it will be extremely difficult to convince families of the victims, to convince Nigerians that pay attention to these details, that we are doing very well in the area of security.
The rising insecurity across Nigeria's north and middle belt has increased pressure on the government of President Bola Tinubu, who promised to curb violence when he took office in 2023.
Security problem is a global problem. It's not localized only to Nigeria. There is need for us to share information.
With developing issues including the growing use of vigilante groups, fueling retaliation violence, increased airstrikes damaging the environment, alongside food security threats as inflation rises, experts stress the importance of strengthening Nigeria's security architecture to reduce and confront the foothold of criminal activities within the country.
Do I have that commitment from you?
In Lagos for News Central, Ni Omani.
Let's move to education matters now. Members of the Lagos Secondary School Model United Nations have called for the development of artificial intelligence to serve humanity, prioritize human rights and dignity. Now, the President of the General Assembly, Ambassador Gloria Kalu, made this call during the 5th session of the Assembly. News Central's Adeshawa Odushoga tells us more.
Of Cuba rises to move the motion.
These are secondary school students in Lagos State, modeling the United Nations General Assembly, with delegates representing different countries of the world.
Let us harness AI's power to end poverty and hunger.
The Lagos Secondary Schools Model United Nations is holding its 5th session with the theme, Artificial Intelligence, an emerging driver of sustainable development.
I went through some processes before elected as a president, and then I went through trainings and Zoom meetings before this very day.
It feels very good being a delegate, since you are not just representing yourself, you are representing your country. The whole purpose of the United Nations is just for all the countries in the entire world to be able to bring out their problems and be able to find and seek for common solutions.
The session was attended by the Lagos State Honorable Commissioner for Basic and Secondary Education, Jamiu Ali Balogun, where he declared a commissioner award for the overall best student in both junior and senior secondary schools across the state.
It is more or less a training ground for our students to be involved in what it entails to be engaged in government and to know about what it entails to put in operation good governance in our society.
The conference in its 5th edition was organized by the Lagos State Education District and the United Nations Information Center in Nigeria.
This is a unique program organized by all the 6 districts for our students to do what? To showcase to the world that our students in public schools can stand pari passu any student in the whole world.
Over 3,000 participants, physically and virtually, are involved. So it is not even a program that is limited to those that you find in the international conference center here.
It's a way by which the children are able to model exactly the United Nations way, and with the kind of in-depth knowledge which they were able to gather.
The model United Nations simulations such as these engage hundreds of thousands of students each year globally, helping them to learn more about the principles of the United Nations and how it functions. It is also done to groom secondary school students to prepare them for leadership roles and being in tandem with the global issues and its solutions. In Lagos for News Central, Adeshewa Odushoga.
Residents of Chad's capital, N'Djamena, have reacted to the presidential election a day after the vote, which is aimed at ending 3 years of military rule. Some opponents of the junta leader, Mahamat Idris Debny Itno, have dismissed the election, saying it was fixed. The election results are expected on May 21st, with a possible second round on June 22nd.
بعد وانينا قنا ما عندنا اي مشاكل يا اخي انت قبل عديل وخلاص قاعدين جاهزين ان شاء الله جو شالوا القماقم كله ودوم وخلاص تمام هسه قاعد نرجو ان شاء الله النتيجه بس اننا بقى عندنا ما عندنا مشاكل انا مرق جاي في البيت ولا بوتي امبس ماما كاكا ولا بوتي سيسي مصرا ولا بوتي اوتر كانديدا انا جاي في البيت كلام ما مرق بوتي ده أنا زعلان من حكومة الشادية ولا بنتونا عمل الناس كله جرو جرينا أنا جريت عمل ما بنتونا كلام ده أنا ما مرجع في البيت كلام أنا تعبانين شغل عديل ما عندنا يدوروا ناكلوا.
Now, the MK party founder, Jabulani Khumalo, has written to the Independent Electoral Commission to urgently remove the Jacob Zuma as the party's face and president. In a letter, Khumalo said Jacob Zuma occupied both positions through fraudulent and illegal maneuvers. He says the plan was for Zuma to only campaign for the MK, as he assisted in contributing in raising funds for the registration. This step by Jabulani comes after he was expelled as the member of the party, together with other 4 members. Israel's seizure and closing of the Rafah crossing in Gaza has raised concerns that already scarce supplies will be further depleted and lead to a catastrophic disaster. The incursion comes after Israel said it would continue its military operation in Rafah, even after Hamas said it had accepted a Gaza ceasefire proposal but put forward by Qatari and Egyptian mediators. Israel has ordered tens of thousands of Palestinians to flee Rafah, which shelters more than 1 million displaced persons, sparking fears of a full-blown Israeli military assault on the southern Gaza city. Spokesperson for the Palestinian Authority, Nabil Abu, has called on the U.S. to pressure Israel to abandon the Rafah invasion, saying it threatens to double the suffering of Gaza's displaced population.
يعني امبارح الساعة 11 إلا 10 تقريبا فجأنا بصوت قصف عنيف جدا. طلعنا لقينا أشلاء أطفال، يعني أطفال الاحتلال قتل أبوهم وأمهم أواخر العام الماضي واليوم قتلهم هم. يعني بأي حق يا نتنياهو أنت بتشن حرب على مدنيين وحرب على أطفال؟ هذا المنزل مدني فيه أطفال، بأي حق؟ من الصبح وبرن بعد طبعا الهواية بعد ما انقصفنا 100%، هو طب برن رقم خاص ورسائل الاسطوانة تاعتهم هذا واخلوا ما تخلوا كلام الهبل تبعهم. يعني بعد ما انقصفنا اخلوا. طب وين بدك تروح؟ والله ما مش عارف لسه.
أطفال عزل قاعدين نايمين آمنين في بيوتهم، يرموا عليهم برميل متفجر، بيت ضعيف بيت صغير، عليش كل هذا؟ يا ناس أفيقوا، يا ناس مكفي، يا ناس أغيثونا الله يجزيكم الخير، أغيثونا أنقذونا الله يرحمكم.
Earlier, international correspondent Fia Hagen spoke to us on this.
And confusion in Rafah at the moment. So earlier on today, around 6 a.m. this morning, we had that one of the crossings in Rafah had been closed. Now we are hearing that the Erez crossing along that border has been open and about 60 aid trucks have managed to pass through. That's not anywhere near what Gaza needs every day. It needs about 500 aid trucks. But it's not that particular crossing is open. The IDF says the crossing is operating as usual. Earlier on, it said that it was shut. Now, all around Rafah at the moment, you have Israeli forces to the east. They have raised the flag and flattened signs at a Rafah crossing compound, and you've got tanks entering the crossing compound from the south. You've got the Kerem Shalom crossing is also closed, and vehicles driving north. So some particular crossings are closed.
Let's move to business. The Nigeria Deposit Insurance Corporation, NDIC, has recently raised the maximum deposit insurance coverage for banks operating in the country. The new revision increases the coverage for deposit money banks, DMBs, from 500,000 naira to 5 million naira for microfinance banks, from 200,000 to 2 million for primary mortgage banks, from 500,000 naira to 2 million naira, and for mobile money operators, MMO subscribers, pass through from 500,000 naira to 5 million naira per subscriber. On the Business Edge show, Babatunde Obadero, that's the CEO of Zitra Investment, shared his thoughts on the reasons behind the increase in maximum deposit insurance coverage for financial institutions in the country and his opinions on the matter.
In the first instance, what we have today is we've been with it for close to a decade. Let me take you back a bit. So in 1988, when this started, I think in the early 90s, the amount that was covered was just 50,000 naira. It was later increased to 200,000, I think sometime in 2011 or so, while the ones for the coverage for the PMB, the primary mortgage institutions and the MFBs was fixed at 100,000. We saw an increase again, I think in 2016, and then in 2016, the NDIC added the MMOs, and then.
Let's wrap it up with some sporting detail. The transfer of the Flame Onshore from a 19th century tall ship will mark the start of 12,000 kilometers torch relay across mainland France and the country's far-flung overseas territories. Organizers are hoping for the first public spectacle of their much-hyped iconic Olympics, just 79 days away, will help build excitement after a damaging row about ticket prices and ongoing concerns about security. It's something we've been waiting for a long time, Chief Organizer Tony Enquit told reporters on Monday. It's here, 100 years after the last game. The games are coming home. When the Paris opening ceremony begins on July 26th, it will be the first time the city has played host for a century after previous editions in 1924 and 1900. And that's a wrap on the news at this time. But before we go, another look at some of our top stories. We told you that APC rules 27 pro-Wike lawmakers to impeach Rivers State Governor Fubara. Chadians express mixed feelings about the presidential poll. South Africa's MK Party's founder seeks Zuma's removal as party's president. Don't forget to send in your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen. You can also follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch us live across these platforms. That's DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Apple TV, and YouTube. And thanks for watching. I am Dakbo Adigboyi. Bye for now.